Hello and welcome to the first series of presentations on the fundamentals of a program. We're going to be dividing this into smaller chunks to keep the momentum going and to not have you sit down for a longer period of time. Let's get started. What is a program? One answer is that it's structuring long-term training so that it makes sense, which we will go into in the future, structuring long-term training to help the student achieve a specific goal. The program helps tell the story of the student's journey from how they got from A to B or Y or Z. So, in the spirit of making the program make sense, we have training program organizations. And there are three main organizational structures, and there's really four, which we'll go into the fourth at the end here. So a macro cycle constitutes the overall story and defines the time frame between the starting point, let's just say that's January 1, and the long-term goal. Let's say they have a fat loss goal or whatever it is, and they want to achieve it by December 31st. So the macro cycle would cover from January 1st to December 31st in that example. In an Olympic cycle, it's 4 years. And someone's short-term goal, it could be 6 months, right? So it can last from a few months to 1 or more years, and it is made up of several mesocycles. So let's go into the mesocycle next. The mesocycle is a fraction of the macrocycle, which we just covered, that pursues a specific outcome. So a training phase is a mesocycle. It is the piece of the puzzle that portrays the final goal. So remember, it's all building up towards that final goal. It's not a distraction from the goal, even though it might be higher in intensity or lower intensity. It could be higher in volume, it could be lower in volume, but it's all adding up to the final end goal. A typical mesocycle will last about 6 weeks. It could last 4, it could last 8, it could last 2. And it is constituted of several microcycles. So let's go into the microcycle. The microcycle is the core of a plan. It is represented by 1 week. So from if you're in week 1 of your mesocycle, you're in a microcycle. And your mesocycle lives in a longer term macrocycle. I'm hoping that makes sense. So we have long term, macro, we have shorter chunks, meso, and then we have even smaller chunks, the week, which is the micro. A microcycle contains several training workouts within that week. And the training workout itself would be that fourth training program cycle, right? So there's not really a name for it. It's just the session, right? The training unit. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday. The Monday, that's a training workout. Wednesday, that's a training workout. Let's say Friday, that's a training workout. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, that's your microcycle. So one of the many issues, there are more than one issue, but many issues of the kitchen sink workouts, and I would define that as just throwing a bunch of stuff against the wall and doing Cirque du Soleil and, doing whatever it takes to get a sweat kind of a thing. One of the many issues of kitchen sink workouts, it does not lead to a proper story over the long term. The cycles can devolve into a can you top this sessions where every workout, every phase, every microcycle, every mesocycle has to top the other one in fanciness, and it ends up injuring a student, leading to a premature plateaus because it's too much too soon, or it reduces overall effectiveness because it can lead to boredom. Because if you ever wanted to, let's say, pull back a little bit because the student is getting hurt or it's just overwhelming and they're not recovering and you're just or just running out of ideas, it can lead to boredom, reducing the overall effectiveness, reducing the adherence, and creating overall chaos within the overall story, right? So that's why we avoid the kitchen sink can you top this workout. It doesn't mean the workouts are bland, far from it. They can be very exciting and effective. They're just not chaos. Now, one of the most fundamental principles of training and in life in general, and we'll go into some examples, is the SAID principle. And the SAID principle stands for specific adaptations to impose demands. You get good at what you train. If you train for something specific, and everything that you train will be specific to that thing, you'll get good at that. Right? So if you go to school, you take a algebra class, you're going to eventually get good at algebra, but you won't get good at French by taking algebra. You won't get good at a marathon by training your basketball free throws every single day. So if you train for hypertrophy or you train for fat loss, you won't necessarily get good at 100-meter sprint speed, right? So you get good at what you train. Now, when you combine various mesocycles with specific training stimuli, and if it all makes sense, then you have a good program. So the goal, you can see that my little quotation marks are a little messed up here. The goal is to keep the goal by Coach Dan John. You may have heard of him, or you may have read about him in the past. But the goal is to keep the goal. So if the student says my goal is X, the program should encourage that adaptation, right? So the goal of the training program should not be something so different and not complementary to the overall goal. And in the phase, the Google Sheet, we're using Google Sheets right now, the row that it says client goal circled in the slide here, right there, you'll see this person's goal is Stark Naked Challenge 2023, body composition improvement, pain relief, general well-being. So there's a lot here. There's a lot that the student says is my goal. So the phases would have to have a touch of it all, but you can't get good at all those things. It's just not physically possible to maximize. Now, you can make small changes. It's like when you go and take 4 electives, you'll get improvements in each one, but you won't be a master at one. And not every student wants to be a master at one thing, but they have one goal that's more important to them than maybe a secondary or a tertiary goal. So you get good at what you expose your body to, and you'll see that those goals are itemized in that first row. Another principle is the principle of progressive overload. So just like going to school, we're gonna go into the school analogy one more time. If you think about the math that you took when you were in 5th grade, if you are not in 5th grade anymore and you went back to take that 5th grade math class, it wouldn't provide any overload to your brain. It wouldn't be that challenging. It wouldn't be challenging at all for many of us. It might be challenging for me. So it would not stimulate you to get better at math because it's not overloading it's not making you stretch to meet those new requirements, those new stressors. So in progressive overload, it's the gradual increase of the stress placed on the muscular system, on the nervous system, on the musculoskeletal system. So the training has to be slightly above your current capabilities and gradually increase as your capabilities increase, because you will adapt, and you will adapt to what you train. Right? So if we train for 10 repetitions on a dumbbell bench press at 30 pounds, eventually you'll get good, and it won't feel like 30 pounds. It'll feel like 25 pounds. So we gradually increase the stress. Now, there are many ways of making something quote unquote harder, and these are four examples of ways of providing progressive overload. One is increasing the volume, which is increasing sets. So going from 3 sets of 10 to 4 sets of 10. Increasing reps, going from 3 sets of 10 to 3 sets of 12. You could do both, going from 3 sets of 10 to 3 sets of 12, and then to 4 sets of 12. Those are increases in volume. We could reduce rest intervals. So if you go from 60 seconds of rest to 45 seconds of rest to 30 seconds of rest, we could increase load. Obviously, we can go from 30 pounds to 35 pounds to 40 pounds to 42.5 pounds, and we could alter tempo. So if we don't want to increase the weight for safety reasons or for practical reasons, like we don't have a jump that's appropriate, like if you think about a lateral raise, if going from 15 pounds and the next jump is 20 pounds, that might be too big of a jump. So we would take a lateral, let's say we could take a lateral raise from a 2-0-1 tempo, and we will explain tempos shortly. You go from a 2-0-1-0 tempo to a 3-0-3 tempo, let's say, and we slow down the cadence of that rep, that would quote unquote make it the effort harder. Now, each one of these has its pros and has its cons. Let's just say the rest interval. Let's just say we choose a rest interval. So if you do a hard set of 3 sets of 10, so you do a hard set of 10, and instead of resting 60 seconds, you do it to 45, you do run the risk of interfering with the quality of movement because they might not be fully recovered. Just like when you increase weight, their form might break down because they haven't fully adapted to the weight that you were just at, and or the weight that you progressed to might have been too much. So everything has its pros and cons. So you have to be kind of careful about how you choose to provide progressive overload. Okay, variety. There is no perfect program, right? There is no perfect program. So how do you balance the set principle with a long-term program? So like if the student's goal is X and you provide a specific Y, why not just keep that forever because it's super specific, right? This is where variety comes in. Your body will, using the set principle as a backdrop, your body will initiate responses in order to adapt to whatever stresses are placed upon it. So your body will try to get good at whatever you expose it to. We just don't talk about the set principle. Therefore, the effectiveness of any program is determined by the amount of time it takes to adapt to it. So the program is excellent until you've adapted to it. Then we have to evolve the program. The longer you are on a program, the less effective it becomes. Let's take the example of walking 10,000 steps. So you have a specific route that you take outside of your home or work or whatever that guarantees you 10,000 steps. So you take that route. After a while, the calories that your body burns to achieve those 10,000 steps will go down because your body's getting better at moving your body. You're becoming more energy efficient. You're using less energy per step to accomplish those 10,000 steps. So you've adapted to that specific route. Choose. So the progression would be you can go to 12,000 steps, or you could do that, or you could do a different path. You could do different shoes. You could do hills. You could do a variety of other things to increase that stimulation back up again to accommodate for the adaptation that took place. So doing 10,000 steps on a very specific route for 3 years does not mean that in that third year you're burning the exact same amount of energy that you were at day one, year one. All programs have their pros and cons, so no matter how well they are designed, the longer you remain on a program, you adapt to the positive aspects of the program and you accumulate the negative aspects of a program. A workout that is unchanging, so if, let's say the mesocycle is from January to December, if the program remains the same from January until December, it can lead to overuse injuries because you're overloading the same joints, the same muscles in the exact same fashion. Just think about golfer's elbow or tennis elbow. They're called those because of the repetitive stress that those specific sports are providing to those areas. Now, people get tennis elbow without ever playing tennis, but the origin of that is coming from the sport of tennis because and or golf because of those repetitive stresses that they place on the elbow. It is crucial to change the workout at specific intervals. Now, everyone is different, meaning that everyone's adaptation time is different. Stark, for the most part, uses 6-week phases. And I said for the most part because it could be a little bit lower, a little bit shorter, a little bit longer. But for the most part, it's 6-week phases. We are going to stop here for part 1 at 15 minutes so you can go back and watch it again if you need to. And then we're going to see you for part 2. Thank you.